Eddie Infidel's I'm Magic Editor of PR Week. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this very special session, DEI in Reality, a First-Hand Perspective. It is sponsored by Aflac, and of course, much gratitude to them for doing so. Though difficult and challenging on so many fronts, the past year plus has placed the crucial topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the forefront of more conversations than ever before. As such, we have reached a moment of opportunity and motivation where real and lasting progress could be made. Many discussions about DEI focus on intent and tactics, and those are vital. However, powerful examples of brands and leaders who have both made and represent that progress very well might be the most inspirational and educational forces in this dialogue. In this exclusive PR Week interview, we proudly highlight such a leader and such a brand, such an esteemed leader who will provide that firsthand perspective I referenced earlier. It is my honor to introduce Ines Gutzmer, VP of Strategic Communications and Head of Communications at Aflac. Ines, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. And it is, I got to be honest with you, it is heartwarming to see the duck in that logo right behind you. It just wouldn't be Aflac without it. So I'm so happy to see that.
We love our duck.
I know. And through many, many dealings I've had with your wonderful brand, my house has more than its share of Aflac ducks. So very appreciative of this opportunity indeed. Now, during this conversation, we'll be talking about the roles everyone can play in DEI, environments that allow everyone to be their true selves, and the impact DEI, or the lack thereof, has on personal lives. I've really been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time, Ines, so let's get right to it. And I want to start here. Ahead of our chat today, I cannot help but take note of how proud you are to work at a brand that has allowed you to be your true self and thrive because of it. As a top female executive of color at a major brand, that is so inspiring to hear. As specifically and perhaps tactically as you can, what is it about Aflac's culture or corporate setup that has allowed you to thrive professionally?
That is such a great question. Thank you for asking that. Aflac is a brand with a soul, and that is captivating to me, and both captivating and inspiring. Because, after doing what I do for 20 plus years, you can find a lot of brands that have, diversity is some kind of tab or some kind of button in their website where they just put content and that's about it. But Aflac truly talks the talks and walks the walk. I mean, it's a company that honestly cares for diversity. It's a company that honestly gives voice to their employees, care for their employees. Our CEO, Dan Amos, always say, take care of your employees and they will take care of your customers. And that is exactly right. It's a company that has a very solid leadership, but also caring leadership. I mean, that kind of like a true family kind of feeling, it's just very, very special. And I think that, that probably, shows, we have our brand reputation is extremely high, at least one of the highest that I've seen in the industry or that I work for, because I work for brands as, in-house. And I also work with millions of brands when in my agency life, which I had 70% of my career was in the agency space. So I would say that, that's what makes Aflac so very special. And I think that when it comes to diversity, it's just not even a topic. I think that sometimes when you have to think about something like a topic, it tells you that it's something that you need to really focus on, really make an effort. And Aflac is not even a topic. It is. It just is. And I don't think that anyone in this company, starting from the top to every level of the organization, could conceive this company without the high level of diversity that we have. So that's why I'm a happy camper, and I just really like working for this company, because you do have a chance for real to have your voice heard. I mean, being part of a minority as I am, being an immigrant as I am, and part of a diverse group. So that's, I hope that answers your question.
It really, really not only answers my question, it's rather inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that. Clearly, organizational leaders, those in the C-suite, have a huge role to play in creating cultures and environments that fully embrace DEI. However, all professionals of color have a huge role to play too, from those at the most junior levels to leaders who have reached your lofty status. What are some proactive steps that professionals can take to help their brands become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive? Basically, in asking this, what I'm trying to get at is, yes, the C-suite has a major role to play in making sure they have a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture, but every employee has a role to play, no matter what level of seniority they are. Can you please talk about that a little bit?
Sure. You made a good point about, senior leadership have to play a role. And I do believe that it starts at the top. And I cannot imagine that we will be in the place we are without Dan Amos's vision about diversity and inclusion. And I always like to say this because it's one of my favorite quotes from Dan. He's like, I don't want to walk in a room where everyone looks like me. I want to walk in a room where, there's people with different backgrounds and different culture perspectives and all that, because that makes it really interesting, because it does mirror humanity, right? That's the way humanity is composed, from different people. So I do believe that starts at the top, and that is something that Aflac got really right from the very beginning. I mean, Aflac has been talking about diversity even before it was a topic. I mean, it's years and years and years of believing in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when you have someone at the top and the whole leadership, sort of like pushing that down, is so much easier for the levels that are below them to really treasure that and understand it. And I would say that there's a lot of things that you can do. The first one is really to have a serious and BFAP and comprehensive hiring strategy, where you really put the emphasis in trying to bring diversity to your company. So I think that's kind of like very important, and we do have that in place. And we have a diversity council. We have, a head of diversity and inclusion. All these people are really part of HR and looking at our strategy to ensure that we bring those different perspectives to the table. So that is extremely important. But the other piece that I think is very important is make it part of your KPIs. I mean, make it part of people bonuses. I mean, make it part of a true commitment. It starts with, making it so important that is a KPI as much as any other thing that you measure in your company. There has to be a metric around that. And I think that we do have all those things, which is the reason why, Aflac has, 65% women and 40% African Americans. I mean, that is absolutely pretty unique. And we've just been named best company to work for in diversity by Forbes recently, like literally last week. So I mean, those things talks about, how serious we are and how, we truly believe that having in your workforce, what you see outside in the outside world is so very important, not only for giving opportunities to people, but also to actually drive business forward. I mean, that's the reality. So I hope that answered your question in terms of what we can all do to make sure that diversity has a prominent seat at the table.
Well, the mention of KPIs as well as the hiring practices is obviously something that's very, very important. And it is really also something that any company, if they're looking to sort of move the needle on this and hopefully someday reach the levels of Aflac, that's a really, really great place to start. So I very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
One of the more interesting but often overlooked dynamics of this conversation is the diversity within diverse groups. On one hand, an overall DEI commitment has to work for myriad groups: Black, Latinx, Asian, LGBTQIA, and others. And then within each of those groups, there is obvious diversity too. This is clearly an advanced level of the DEI conversation, but a crucial one. I welcome you to share whatever thoughts you wish on this topic and what organizations can do, at the very least, to create a workplace where such a holistic appreciation of diversity, equity, and inclusion can exist.
Yeah. It's interesting. I like how you approach it in terms of diversity within diversity. And I appreciate that. And but at the same time, I just feel it's all diversity. I mean, it's like, I think that, if you look around and see, what's happening in our country, right, and the conversations that are taking place in terms of, social justice and rights and all of the above, I mean, I think that, diversity within diversity, to me, is nothing else that truly appreciate and embrace uniqueness. I mean, and I know that it sounds really nice, and I know that it sounds like, of course, but it's just so difficult. I mean, we cannot do that as a country. Think about that. I mean, so it's just like, I think it's really having an appreciation and respect for the uniqueness that all of us bring to the table, whether you are, part of the LGBTX community, or you are Latino, or you are African American. I mean, we have all been brought up and rise in very different ways. And that to me adds color. That's to me adds diversity of thought. It brings just new perspectives. And I believe that if we don't embrace that uniqueness, we're just missing half of it. We really are. So I think that, when we talk diversity within diversity, I just think it's diversity. And diversity is not only, the groups of people that we just acknowledge, because I don't want to get in a situation where we go all the other way. and which can happen,
Mm-hmm.
So, the search for balance is kind of like the holy grail, right? I mean, where the balance resides. So I think that also brings to everyone perspective. It's just not diversity within diversity, but everyone perspective, so that nobody feels excluded. I think it's not as much as about inclusion as it is about no one feeling excluded. And to me, that is what we need to look at these days. I mean, let's just have no one being excluded in any of the conversations, and let's try to push and achieve, hopefully, balance.
That is really, really profound. Thank you very much. And I very much appreciate what you just said as well, because obviously when conversations like this happen, there are groups that are going to be saying, well, wait a minute, if you're putting so much focus on these other groups, you're forgetting about me. And that is the antithesis of what this is all about, right? Listen, it is a very, very difficult balance. You and I are actually having this conversation the day after the verdict came out in the George Floyd murder trial, and obviously very, very top of mind now. And you see the general reactions are obviously positive because of the verdict. But it's a conversation. You said it. This country and this world are wrestling with this topic. So it's not going to be solved overnight. But I really do appreciate what you said about focusing on not excluding people. I think it's a really, really great way to look at it. So I very much appreciate that. Now, one of the main reasons I was so excited to talk to you today, Ines, was that again, you have a firsthand perspective of this that not everyone has, and I really wanted to get that across. And I think this last subject we're going to talk about hopefully gets to that. So, one of the other things you and I discussed ahead of our chat today was the impact Aflac's commitment to DEI and the benefits you've seen professionally have had on your personal life, or you personally, perhaps I should say it better. Given the world we live in today and the prevalence of working from home and the more difficult challenge of separating work life and home life when you do them both in the same place, this is a part of the conversation that really, really deserves some attention now. So, Ines, I welcome you to share any thoughts that you wish to on how you've personally been impacted by the fact that you work for a company that is so deeply entrenched in DEI.
I'm going to say it in 3 words. It set me free. It really set me free. And I'm going to tell you that it's sad in a way that it took me so long, but at the same time, I think that our careers are a progression, right? Our careers are, it's a constant learning. It's a constant way to learn more about yourself and how that self fits in the surroundings or in the context you live in. And, you probably realize I'm not first generations of Latinos in America. I'm an immigrant, right? So I came to this country 25 years ago. And, one of the things that was my biggest challenge was, fight with the need that I had or I feel to fit in. I feel like I have to fit in, to blend in, to adapt to the host culture. And I did for quite a bit. And, that wasn't really good. First of all, I was not being authentic. I was not living my truth. But on top of that, I was really depriving the company I was working for, my colleagues, my teams, of the richness that I could bring to the table because of my diversity and because of my background. But the reality is that, when you belong to a diversity group, or a group that is not, that is considered a color, if you will. I mean, there is this kind of a struggle, internal struggle, that you are so grateful to the host culture that you're in, and you want to fit in. You don't want to be singled out. You want to be part of it, right? You want to be really cool and be part of the space that you are. So that is something that I would say that most of us struggle a lot. I did struggle with that for quite a bit. And, it really took some time for me to, as I went to my journey, to really understand that the beauty of what I could offer was exactly the opposite of what I was doing. Was actually to live my truth and understand that what I could give was much more powerful because it wasn't what was already being offered, if you will. So that was like an aha moment. But then you have your aha moment and you understand that, but then you need to find the right place to fit that in. And I have to tell you that I worked for companies in my career which were not really a good space. I was like a fish out of water. And I remember distinctly one company, I'm not going to mention it, but where the CEO of the company will call me out in meetings because of my accent and the fact that I was not from here. And I, so the things that, right now I laugh about it. I really don't care anymore. But that's why you have this fight of, oh, I have to fit in. I need to look like being a chameleon, if you will. Woody Allen's movie Zelig comes to mind, where he has to change into something else to adapt to what he was. So I think that, so that's why when I was able to understand that I need to be true to myself, and then you have to find the right place, and Aflac is that place, where you're who you are and you're actually celebrated for who you are, and you're not pigeonholed. That's the other piece that is very interesting, because what happens also, I imagine, for many, people that belong to the versus group, is that then you're pigeonholed and you're asked to run the Latino practice or the Hispanic practice or whatever it is, because you do have the knowledge, and that's completely okay. I mean, you can do that, but my plea was, do not do that, because I can do so much more. I can, and I have to say, it took me some time to moved from that space to be able to then to realize that I have more like a global approach rather than just that space. So then when you think about Aflac, as a company that truly gives you that opportunity, it really meant to be free. It really meant to be able to enjoy having this accent and to enjoy, the ability of, talking to some of my colleagues in Spanish, back and forth between English and Spanish. And it's so fun and cool. And I don't have to be, worry about not fitting in, because I am fitting in.
Well, I think what I'd say, Ines, if there's any company out there that you would not fit into, I probably don't want to work there or know anything about it. Because, so no, honestly, I mean, I've had the privilege of having so many conversations about DEI with so many wonderful leaders, and just hearing you talk about it from such a personal perspective is just really, really inspiring to me. And that's kind of the point of this podcast. And I hope everyone out there feels the same way, because there's so many levels to this conversation. But if this really, really just accentuates how important it is. And this is the moment in time in our country's history, and I guess in the industry's history as well, where it's really, really time to stop talking about it so much and just start actually doing things. And there are the tools to do that. And what's really, really positive also is I know that there's a lot of leaders in this industry who really, really want to take that next step. And if this podcast in any way sort of helps move that along, then I'm really, really proud to have been a part of it. Thank you for being so candid and honest with us. And of course, taking time from your very busy schedule to speak with me today, because one of the things that you definitely are is incredibly busy. I know that. So I appreciate that very much. Obviously, thanks to Aflac as well for making this event possible with its support. Thanks to all of you out there for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. I hope you did as well. This is Gideon Fiddles, a Magic Editor of Fiore. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.